Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the FTD webinar titled Crafting Content and Community on Social Media, Part 4 in a 5-part series. We are delighted to welcome back today's featured presenter, Krista Neher, founder and CEO of Bootcamp Digital. As mentioned, this is Part 4 of an incredible 5-part webinar series, Mastering E-commerce. Before we get started, I have some quick housekeeping notes. Check out the handout section on your GoToWebinar control panel to download a PDF of today's presentation and some other helpful resources. Also, Krista will be answering questions throughout the webinar, so simply type your questions in the question box on that control panel. I know that Krista enjoys an interactive webinar with plenty of questions. All right, let's get started. Welcome back, Krista.
Excellent. Thank you for having me, and thank you to all of you for taking time out of your day to join us. I'm a small business owner just like you, so I know how hard it can be to make time for things like this. But my hope for our time together today is that we can focus on how you can create better content on social media to improve the results that you're getting. One of the things that I always like to keep in mind when I think about creating social media content is that it takes almost the same amount of time to make mediocre content as it does to make great content, right? Meaning that it's not so much that you need to start doing something you're not already doing. It's about taking something you're already investing time in and doing it better to maximize the impact that you get from it, which naturally grows your return on investment. So that's what we're going to focus on today, is how to improve your content to reach more people and better achieve your business goals. If you have questions as we go through, please ask them using the questions box as we go. As Janet said, I love taking questions, and I would love for this to be as interactive as possible. So don't hesitate to ask questions as we go, because that'll help me to make sure I'm answering or I'm targeting the content to your specific needs. So first, as we kick off, if you want to share through the questions box, which social networks are you currently using for your business? So using the questions box, you can just share. I know it looks like you're asking a question. Don't worry about that. But just type in what social networks you're currently using to promote your business. And that'll help me to also customize what I talk about to make sure that we're meeting your needs when it comes to the type of content that we cover today. So go ahead and share that. And I see a few answers coming in already. You'll notice like my eyes kind of look this way. That's where I have the control panel open. So most of you are on Facebook and Instagram. I see so far everyone is on Facebook and Instagram. And then we have a couple TikTokers and a few Pinterest users. So those are great. So we'll definitely focus a lot on Facebook and Instagram because I know those tend to be the primary channels. And I'll talk a little bit about TikTok and vertical video if we have time, because I think that's definitely something that's worth covering. So thank you to those of you who shared the networks you're on. It's helpful for me to see what you're using already. When it comes to content creation, what we're really focusing on is making our content stand out as much as possible. So for those of you who don't know, and actually I'm just gonna pop over and show you my browser window. Oops, I'm gonna show you my browser window so you can really see this in a more meaningful way. But when it comes to social media, so I'm gonna show you my personal Facebook account just so you know I don't actually know what'll show up. Hopefully nothing too questionable for any of us. Usually it's nothing that exciting. I'm kind of a boring person at this stage. But when a user comes to social media, so this is my personal account, right? I'm on social media, I'm on my Facebook page. What do I see? Well, Facebook and Instagram both work in similar ways, and you can access it from your computer or your mobile device. But the primary place where people interact with your content is right here in what's called the newsfeed. And the newsfeed is where you see the status updates from the people and pages that you've chosen to follow. You can also see ads. So you see this is an ad, it says sponsored below it. And I'll see updates from groups, people, and pages that I've chosen to follow. So the reason it's so important to create outstanding content on social media is that what you want to do for your business is have your content ranked toward the top of the newsfeed. which means when I log in, you see I'm getting posts from this group. I was on a cruise last week, that's why, but I'm getting content from this group. And I made the joke while I was on a cruise last week, but what Facebook sees is that when content from this group came up, so they start off by just showing me a little bit when I join the group. But if I'm looking at the posts, even if I don't like or comment on them, just by dwelling and spending time on them, that signals to Facebook, wow, Krista's really interested in this content. So that's why it shows up higher on my newsfeed. So essentially, all social networks work off of an algorithm that decides the order in which the content is shown. An average Facebook user could be exposed to over 2,000 status updates a day. So the idea of social media in general is that you want to reach as many people as possible. And in order to reach as many people as possible, you want to essentially rank higher in the algorithm because that grows your visibility. Are we all, hopefully you're all with me so far. So how does Facebook or Instagram or any social network decide what you see? Now, the good news here is that all social networks use basically the same algorithm. They look at the entity that made the post. So in this case, this is a group, Royal Caribbean First Time Cruisers. If I usually seem to be enjoying that content, it's more likely to show up in my newsfeed. You don't have to. There's a myth in social media that people need to like or comment in order to help you show up more in the algorithm. Likes and comments are some of the signals that they look at, but that's not exclusively true. For example, I don't like or comment on anything in public groups because I don't really want to argue and talk to complete strangers. So I don't like anything, I don't comment on anything, but it can see that I'm consuming the content, and that sends signals. So they look at the entity. How often am I interested in this entity? The second thing they'll do is they'll look at the post itself. So I'm going to try and find a post from, let's say, a friend or something. Here we go. So this is a post from my friend Phil. So they'll look at the post itself. If this post is getting a lot of likes or a lot of likes from people in my network, it will rank higher. So they look at how do you respond to this entity in general, and how are people responding to this post? And so if you look at Phil's post, of the people who've liked it, 2 of them at least are in my network. So Facebook's like, well, people are tending to like this post. It's only been up for 4 hours. And the people in your network specifically seem to like it. So we think this would be a good post for you. So it's looking at the entity that made the post, how the post itself is doing, and then it looks at timeliness. It prefers to show you newer content versus older content. Okay, so that's how an algorithm on any social network works. What does that mean to you? Well, what this means to you is that if you create content and no one is interested in it, you get less and less visibility over time. If you create content that people are interested in, you create more and more visibility for yourself over time. So if you're posting on Instagram or Facebook every day and you're like, my content's not reaching a lot of people, I don't know if this is worth my time. Reach is dictated by how people respond to your content. So if your reach is low, it's because your content isn't generating reactions with people. So this is why content optimization is such a hot topic. Every post dictates the performance of the next post. So it's really important that we're consistently filling our news feeds with high quality, relevant content. So that's why in the space of social media, we talk about content so often and content optimization, because having consistent good content is really vital to your long-term success. One of the other trends that you see in social media as a result of this is that social media used to really be a lot about maintaining calendars and posting frequency. If I was teaching you a course on social media 5 or 10 years ago, we would spend a lot of time talking about how often to post on different social networks. And people were posting a lot. I mean, there were people who would post multiple times a day on Facebook, and in some ways that was the best practice. Now, because of the algorithms, it's about quality over quantity. So think about this for a second. when I talk about quality over quantity. If your next post visibility is dictated by your last post, if you're trying to hit some schedule, so you post kind of boring stuff, your next post doesn't get a lot of visibility and it's kind of counterproductive in the long run. So more often, businesses now will post less frequently, maybe once a day or even a handful of times a week, but really focus on creating outstanding content. Many social media experts have really changed their tunes in the advice that they give to their clients. It used to be, if you're on Instagram or Facebook, post every day. If you have great content, sure, post every day, but you'll be better off in the long run with 3 remarkable posts a week than 7 unremarkable posts a week. And that's all based on how the algorithms work. So it's important to keep in mind as you're looking at your content for your social networks, why content optimization is so important and why we talk so much about it. So there we go. A little bit about me. I've been in the digital marketing space for a long time. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask. I've been around the block since the earliest days in social media. But what we're going to talk about today is I want to start by talking a little bit about content strategy, because this is the underpinning foundation of business content. And if you don't get this right, you're never going to have great content. I would say, I mentioned before, I've done this a long time. Almost any time I talk about social media, the number one question people will ask is, how many times should I post a week? And what time of day should I post? Everyone wants to know those things, right? But those are like, well, I used to always say these are like the diet pills of social media, meaning they really account for this much of your success. The problem is now there's diet pills that actually work apparently, so I need a new analogy. If anyone has one, feel free to help me out. But the time of day is not really an important factor. Everyone likes to talk about it. It's in every social media analytics platform. But think about it like this. If your content is boring, it doesn't matter when you post it. It literally doesn't matter. The reason it's like a diet pill is because it's easy to execute. If I just said to you, hey, make sure you post at 2 p.m. every day, you can easily do that and you can pat yourself on the back and feel great. But it's not going to meaningfully impact your results. So strategy is really the underpinning idea here. The other thing to keep in mind, after we talk about strategy, we're going to talk about copywriting, images, and videos, and how to optimize each of those for social platforms. The reason we start with strategy, though, and I want you to take that part seriously, even though it's a little more theoretical, is I had posted something on LinkedIn a couple years back about optimization, and someone left a comment that was one of the smartest things I've heard anyone say. And he said, the thing most people don't understand is you can't optimize a bad idea. So what I mean by that is that if you're not saying something interesting, it doesn't matter if you use 7 hashtags. And this is something I see again and again and again in the world of social media content. And in fact, one of my earliest clients was an agency, and I would consult with them and give them advice on how they manage social media for their clients. Kind of a cool job, right? I just get to criticize everything they do. But no, I would give them feedback. And what was interesting was when I would look at their content, these were smart people. They wanted to do a good job and they were hard workers. And what I saw is, like, if the best practice was use 5 hashtags, they had their 5 hashtags. If the best practice was have a picture, they had a picture. If the best practice was 7 words, they had 7 words, right? They hit every optimization best practice. But the problem, but the content still sucked. It was boring. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, I can't put my finger on what they're doing wrong. Right? Why is this not working? And what I found was that what it was they had no real idea behind what they were posting. Meaning, if the post was, let's say, a restaurant and it was half price wine night, they would just say, like, it's half price wine night, come and get wine. Here's a picture of wine, hashtag wine, right? They didn't really think about, well, who's the target audience? What are we trying to do? And what kind of a message would appeal to them? Right? It's not just wine, wine, wine. I mean, sure, half price wine, but maybe it's that you want to show people what a great time they could have with their friends. Maybe it's mom's night out, maybe it's happy hour. But you want to think about really what are you trying to say versus just talking about your business or talking about your products. So this is what we're going to cover in our time together. So the first thing that's important to keep in mind is people are distracted in 8 seconds. What's really important to keep in mind with social media content is you have a very short time span to capture their attention. The time span you have is actually under 2 seconds, believe it or not. So you have less than 2 seconds, shorter attention span than a goldfish. People also form their first impression in only 50 milliseconds. I don't actually know what that is as a percentage of a second, but it sounds like really short, right? So people are forming impressions fast, and based on what they think, with just a fraction of attention, they're making a decision about if they're going to view your content or not. So what you want to keep in mind is that at its core, when it comes to social, you're in an attention battle, and you're really trying to earn attention to break through the noise. What strategy is going to do for you is give you some focus in what you're trying to say and map that out up front. So there's 3 areas to creating amazing content that gets you business results and wows your customers. What are these 3 areas? The first thing is, why are you posting? What is your business goal behind your post? And we're going to articulate this in terms of the marketing funnel. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because it's really important. So of course you're going to say, well, I'm posting because I want to sell more flowers. Okay, but we need to get a little bit more specific about what we're really trying to do if we want amazing content. The second thing is what's the main idea? Even if you're sending an email, so we're kind of talking about social today, but even if you're sending an email, we seem to think that people open an email and read every single word, very interested. No, how do you read an email, right? If you even open it, you scroll and scan, and you decide if you're going to delve in or not. So because we know we only have a little bit of attention, we need to be very strategic in figuring out what's the one idea. Here's how I think about the what. What's the main idea that should be implanted in someone's brain after they consume my content? I'm going to say that again. Look at your post and ask yourself, what's the idea that should be in someone's brain after they consume my content? Then we get to optimization, which is now how do you take your business goal and the main idea you want to share and say it in a compelling way that gets you attention on social. So this is kind of the 3 stages of success that we'll talk about with setting up a content strategy. So a lot of people will say, okay, I'm on social media to grow my business. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see is that we say, well, oh, we did a wedding this weekend. Let's go post that wedding on social media. That is the worst possible way to run social media. And I know you're probably like, Krista, everyone does this. Are you insane? The answer is I'm not insane. And this is why most people are not effective. Hopefully I'm not insane. No, here's the deal, right? Your goal is to maybe grow brand awareness or be seen as the best wedding florist or to get someone to pre-reserve for Mother's Day with you. These are actual goals. When you have your goals, then your question is, okay, if I want to show that when I work with brides, I'm detail oriented. Now I know from a business standpoint, I want to show I'm detail oriented when I post with bride, when I do weddings. Now, even if I'm drawing from that wedding, I'm increasing the purpose of the type of content. Right now I'm saying, well, what kind of content will show that I have a high attention to detail? And this is how you want to think about your social media, your strategic purpose. And this is true, by the way, for all your marketing. This is actually not in any way unique to social media. I think because we tend to create so much content so quickly in social, it's more obvious that this is a problem. But any single thing you're doing, you want to increase the purpose behind by really thinking about what is the goal of this message. So always start with your goal from the standpoint of strategy. And if you've joined us in the previous workshops, you've probably seen this graphic. I think I include it in almost anything I talk about, because if you don't know why you're posting something, you can never know if it's effective or not. So many businesses will say, hey, can you look at my social media and tell me what you think? And honestly, I can't, because unless I know the business goal you have, how could I evaluate your content? And how could you create content without defining the goal? And so the easiest way to think about it is in terms of the marketing funnel, right? So do I want to just build awareness? And sometimes people think awareness is kind of like not important, but what awareness means is, like, let's say I had a friend who had a death in the family, and I say, oh my gosh, I need to send flowers. Awareness means that I'm like, where do I go? And generally speaking, top of mind awareness is the one or two things that just immediately come to mind of where you would go. So this is called brand awareness. And if you look at TV advertising, most TV advertising is really just about that. It's about getting in your brain. So when you need to make a decision, you're like, oh, I know who does this. So when it's my wedding, I'm not going to Google and Googling bridal florist. I'm like, oh, I know who does a great job with wedding flowers. I'm going to make sure I get a quote from them. Right? So awareness is that you're building a reputation with people and that they know who you are and what you do. Top of mind awareness. Interest means that, and interest and desire we can kind of loop together, but interest and desire is really about what is it that makes you different and that would make someone choose you instead of the competition. So one of the mistakes that a lot of businesses make when they look at marketing is they'll say, well, we're going to show pictures of all the weddings we do. Okay, great. But there's like probably within 10 miles of me, there's 50 florists that all do weddings. What is it about your weddings that are unique that you're communicating through these posts? Is it value? Is it stunning? And there's not a right answer, right? If you think about in any category, people can compete by being, the cheapest, the best, the whatever, fill in the blank. But think about what is it that you're uniquely bringing to the table, and you want that to shine through in your content. So if you're looking at interest and desire, here we're basically saying, okay, here's the message I want to communicate about my business. Next is action. This is where the point of the post is for someone to act right now. So if we think about awareness, interest, and desire, we're putting ideas in people's heads for the long term, or maybe the medium term. When it comes to action, we're actually trying to get them to act now. Hey, reserve for Mother's Day. And then we have retention and advocacy. For almost any small business, but especially businesses like yours, repeat business is a great opportunity. So thinking about how you can use social to retain or grow the business you get from your customers is really important. So, excuse me, before we create content, we want to define the goal. So we know, okay, here's what I'm trying to do with my message. And this is what leads to better content, because now we can say, okay, with this post, I want people to think, my mom will feel so valued if I send her flowers, or surprising your wife with flowers at work is the perfect way to make her feel cared for just on a random Wednesday, right? Those are messages that link to business purposes, right? And that's what we really want to do, is start thinking about the goal of our content. What's the ideal we want to get into somebody's head? Once we know the business goal, now it's what we say, right? So what do you say? If my goal is to, obviously we want to get people to order more flowers, but if my goal is to, maybe it's a slower season of the year, and I think, well, my goal is to get people to order flowers for unexpected occasions. If that's my goal, then I could say, okay, I'm going to go with, send your wife flowers at work just because it's Wednesday. What a better way to surprise someone, or whatever. I'm sure you have better ideas about your industry than I do, but you get the point. So what you say is, well, what's the main point you want to get across? Somebody scrolling on Facebook, they're giving you 2 seconds. That's the average amount of time you have. What's the idea implanted in my head in 2 seconds? That's what we want to be thinking about when we get into the main communication point. So I'm going to show you some examples so you can see this in action. And I'm going to ask you to use the chat box to share the main idea that you get from these posts. So I'm going to show you a post for a second, and then I'm going to ask you to answer in the chat bot, what do you think was the main message of the post? Got it? So you're only going to see it for 2 seconds. So get your eyes glued to that screen. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so if you can share in the chat, what was that post about? So you saw that post for about as long as an average user on social media. What do you think the main message that they were trying to get across was? And if you have no idea, you can say no idea, that's fine. But what do you think the main message was? And just share your answer or insight in the chat box that I see Emily, Julie, and a couple of you are like, I really have no clue, right? The reason is, oops, I'm going to go back to it. Like, you could spend 2 minutes with this and actually still have no idea what it's about. There's too many competing messages and there's a lack of focus, right? The image is saying one thing, the text at the top says something else, the text below has actually 3 messages in it, then the text over there says free trial and the button says learn more. Everything is disorganized in it, right? I see somebody has said it's an alternative. Yeah, you don't even know. Okay, let me show you another one. So again, eyes on the screen. Okay, what did you take away from that post? And I gave you about 2 seconds. So just share in the chat. What did you take away from that post in about 2 seconds? Waffle. The first thing I saw was the big words, yummy dessert. Yeah, so in social media, I see this yummy pumpkin waffle. In social media, we call this food porn. So this is like, OMG, don't you want to eat this, right? That's what they're trying to do. So it's a waffle place and they're like, hey, our pumpkin waffle is anything but basic. It's trying to make you want to go and eat that. If somebody said recipe, good point. It could look like a recipe post almost. But if you knew the business, you would probably see it differently. But it's good to know, right? People may not always see things the way you do. So you saw in just a second, you took something away from that post. Okay, here's another one. Ready? 2 seconds. Oops, that was too short. Hang on, there you go. Okay, what was that one all about? Gym, leggings, perfect leggings. So yeah, if we look at it, you see, I mean, it kind of just says the perfect heights don't exist, but there's like multiple pictures, there's multiple things going on down here. You would take away something about leggings, right? You would see this and probably say the page is selling leggings, but you're not like, oh my gosh, they're amazing for working out in, or they're so comfortable, or they're super soft, right? This is the point I want you to be thinking about, is what value does this post have if all you take away is like, oh, you're scrolling in Facebook, you're like, oh, leggings. If instead they chose one attribute and really hammered that, you might be like, OMG, I need those. And that's what we want to do with our content. So this is an example of a side-by-side, and I'm going to show you florist ones if you're feeling like these don't resonate yet. But I want to show you this because when you look at content in a different category, you see it so clearly, but it's harder to see it sometimes when you're so caught up in your own industry. Look at the difference between these two, right? If we look at the Oreo post and we think back to that marketing funnel, Oreo is just awareness. All they're saying is, OMG, cookie butter Oreos. All they want is the idea in your brain that cookie butter Oreos exist. And then guess what happens? You go to the store and you're like shopping in the cookie aisle and you're like, I need to find those things that I saw on Facebook last week, right? That's what they're trying to do. It's just awareness. The message is simple. We have this product, right? All it is awareness. You see, it's not saying this is better, it tastes amazing. All it's saying is OMG cookie butter Oreos, right? It's just about awareness. They just want the idea in your brain that exists. And by getting that idea in your brain, you'll buy it when you're in a store. If we look at the one from Whole Foods, it's a hot mess, right? I could show you this for 2 seconds and it's like, I don't know, it's some kind of chips. The text, Jackson's Honest isn't a business, it's a mission, learn more. I literally don't know what that means personally. It is a business, actually. So I literally don't know what that's trying to convey. But then you look at the picture, and the picture is a product shot, right? This picture isn't showing a mission. I have no idea how this company like, do they help farmers? Do they give back to charity? Like, it's completely disconnected. Plus, when you look at the picture, they're trying to convey too many ideas. They're trying to show you the variety. They're trying to show natural ingredients. They're trying to show you all of the ingredients, right? There's salt, coconuts, holy cow. So as we look at it, what you want to keep in mind is less is more. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some from your industry. Same thing, I'm going to show you for 2 minutes. I want you to tell me, what's the idea? If you were a consumer, you saw this on Facebook, what idea would you have of the flower shop after you saw this post? And I just have images because I didn't want to like put the logos of the companies, just, you know, out of respect. But so we're just going to see the pictures, not the text, but you have 2 minutes or 2 seconds to say what you think, right? Because that's the main thing people look at is the images. Okay, ready? Okay, so what idea did that give you about the florist who posted it? What was the post about, do you think? So it's a centerpiece for an event, yeah? Event, possibly a wedding, beautiful centerpiece, modern wedding. So I'm gonna go back. So the thing to me is, what is this really trying to convey, right? Is it, I see great design, but the flowers are kind of smushed. Yeah, to me it didn't look amazing, but I don't know. So, okay, David said that too. I was like, maybe it's just me. I thought it looked really like falling apart. But like, we can get into the details of the picture, like it's strangely off center, and like the photograph itself could very easily have been improved. But the thing to me about it isn't so much that, it's that what are you actually, what you want to ask yourself before you would post a picture like this is, what am I trying to convey? Is it we make stunning centerpieces? Or is it flowers add an amazing touch to your event? Think about calling us next time. When you just take the picture, it's harder to convey something. Now you can, of course, but that's what you want to be thinking about. So not so much, we don't want to just think, okay, we did the centerpiece, let's just show a picture of it. We want to take it that step further and say, well, what is it we want to, what do we want people to think of that matches our brand? When they think of a centerpiece, is it this is the most stunning centerpiece? Is it that you were easy to work with? Right? Because each of these, the same picture could be positioned differently or taken differently, depending on what you're trying to show. So even though, yes, we can critique the photo, like it's strangely off center, I don't know why. And David also thinks it looks like it's not a good impression. A couple of you said that as well. But even if we took those elements out of it and just think about strategy, what actually makes this ho-hum isn't just the elements that we don't like about it. It's that there's no real purpose. It's just like, oh, a centerpiece, right? If instead it was, what am I trying to convey about this centerpiece that matches my brand, that matches why people pick me over others, then you could have a really compelling piece of content with it. Okay, let me show you another one. Ready? 2 seconds. Okay, so what did you think when you saw that one for 2 seconds? Just share your kind of, this is what I would take away. If that was in my news feed and I'm a consumer, what would you take away from that? I see the first comment is it's so much better. Yeah, it's definitely better. Large bouquet, bold color, nice presentations. It's better than the last one. I want that. Hand-tied bouquet, stunning, creative, professional, polished. This one you look at and it's like, you know, I told you the waffle was food porn. This is flower porn. Now, I'm not a professional photographer. This is not flower porn. This is flower porn, right? The difference is the goal of this. If this is why say to yourself before you take that picture, what's the goal? The goal of this is clearly to make that bouquet look stunning, right? And it does. It has really bright poppy colors. It's beautiful. And they're showing the stunningness of it. This one, I don't know, is it showing we do centerpieces? The particular photo choice doesn't do much one way or another. So yes, it's not just about the flowers, it's about the message that the flowers are sending, right? And that's what we really want to think about. Okay, I'll show you one last one. Okay, so what did that one convey? And we just saw 2 seconds of it, so I know it's fast, right? But this is the whole idea. The news feed is fast. We seem to think people spend their time like agonizing over our content. They don't, it moves quickly. What did that wedding photo convey to you? If you saw that in your feed as a consumer, what would you take away from it? We do wedding party flowers, fun memories. Yeah, if I look at it, to me, it's, you know, instead of the flowers being center stage, which could be a choice, right? If I want to show a stunning bouquet, the flowers will take center stage. This is showing the flowers as a part of the wedding experience, right? The bride looks happy. Frankly, in this particular photo, because of those hot pink shoes, the flowers actually are adding a ton to the aesthetic of the wedding. So you can kind of see the idea I'm getting at, right? Which is, think about what you want to say before you just post a picture. What are you actually trying to show them, and what's that main message? In any of the flower posts that I showed you, you could easily take that picture, and oftentimes part of it is we get into like, here's flowers, here's flowers, here's flowers. If we can get that one level deeper, why do people buy flowers? What do flowers mean in their lives? What is it about the flowers I want to show them, right? And you can have a whole variety of different content. If you think about a restaurant, for example, they might have some food porn, OMG, don't you want this? Then maybe there's a post about a happy hour special. Maybe there's a post showing people having a great time and showing you the fun experience you get there. You can have that same mix of content as well, right? Sometimes maybe we're going to have flower porn. Sometimes maybe we're going to have stuff that's driving action, right? But what you want to think about is, what is that actual message? So what's our business goal? Is it just awareness? Is there a specific idea that we're trying to get across? And then what's that message that in 2 seconds, somebody will leave my content and be like, oh yeah, this did this. Now, there's a few sort of pro tips I want to share with you to keep in mind. The first one is, you don't need to recreate your marketing every time. One of the things that people don't realize about the biggest TikTok stars is that what most of them do is they come up with an idea, or they do a really big photo shoot, and they just kind of repackage it and reposition it once they know they have a winner. I have 2 kids, and they are obsessed with Mr. Beast on YouTube. He is one of the most popular YouTubers, and he does insane stuff like fill his house with trampolines. You know, I could go on, but anyways, about why. But here's the deal. This is what I want you to think about. So he does something super remarkable. I'm just watching it like, how much did this cost him? But here's the deal. He has one super remarkable thing that he does, but he takes that and chops it up. There's an hour-long video of them setting it up. Then there's video of them doing games with it. Then there's a compilation, the craziest things I've done in my house. And then, can you jump from the 2nd floor down with a trampoline? What they do is they find the winners and they just reposition and recreate them. You don't need to recreate your marketing every time. One of the mistakes that small businesses make is we think, well, we had a wedding last week, so we need to post the pictures of the wedding last week. Well, reframe your question. My business goal is to show that I create stunning weddings. Does it matter if the photo was from last week, last month, or 5 years ago? Doesn't matter, actually, right? It's the best content for the business purpose. If it happened to be the wedding from last week, great. But if you have one wedding where they really went all out and you have amazing pictures, you can keep reusing them again and again. You don't need to recreate your marketing every time. If you're going to do something big for Mother's Day, you can use your marketing from last year, take the best stuff from last year, and then build on that and try and do more. If people sent you user-generated photos of their, you know, of the moms getting the flowers for Mother's Day, use them this year. Nobody knows when these things happen. The date isn't the important part, the quality of the messages. So you don't have to recreate your marketing every single time. The other thing to keep in mind is that you can say the same thing in a lot of different ways. It's okay. I think last week I had showed you an Instagram reel of this girl who made these amazing bouquets. Like, they were way over the top. I think they had like Hello Kitty in them or something. But if you actually looked through her whole feed, she made this bouquet once and she shared photos, she shared different types of videos about it. So it's the same video, or it's the same thing, the same bouquet, but she recut the footage, and every month or two, she would share a different video with a different angle. You can say the same thing in many different ways. Think about yourself, right? You probably follow a lot of businesses and people on social media. You're not like, wait a minute, they posted that last week. Why are they repeating themselves? Nobody is as involved with your marketing as you are, right? Nobody is paying that much attention. The only people paying that much attention to my marketing are me, my employees, hopefully, and my mom, right? My mom would call me and say, you posted the same thing twice this week. But none of my target audiences, right? They're more passively consuming, right? We're scrolling through hundreds of posts in our newsfeed a week. So if you have concepts that really resonate, build on them, use them. You don't have to be new all the time. You can take one thing and find different ways to do it. Another thing we always suggest is a greatest hits strategy. When you know what your best winners are, reuse them every month or every couple months. You don't always need new stuff. The other thing that's important to do is actually look at your analytics to see what are people responding to and what aren't they. There's a phrase in marketing that says 50% of your marketing doesn't work, but you don't know which half. With social media, you can know which half. Just look at your analytics. So definitely keep these things in mind as you get into content optimization. What I want to do now, though, is share some tips and best practices for social channels with you. And again, if you have questions about content optimization or social channels, pop them into the chat. You'll see my eyes keep going over here, but I'm going to keep looking at it. I'm going to try and answer the questions as we go so that I can cover as much ground as possible. So ask your questions as we go. Do not hold them for the end because we'll probably wrap up right on time. Okay, so we've already talked about why content optimization is so important, right? People are scrolling, and in order to send positive signals to the algorithm, you want what's called thumb stopping power, which means someone pauses scrolling and actually pays attention to your content. So you want to try to stand out and make your content interesting. Strategy is actually the best way to do it, because once you have a clear strategy, you'll know what you're trying to say instead of just look at these flowers, look at these flowers, look at these flowers, right? It's going to help you to get more focus and intent behind what you're saying. The 4 U's are actually shown to drive thumb stopping power, which means it's something unique. So maybe it's not a bouquet that's ordered every day, but it's something that is really cool. You could definitely look at your most unique stuff. Anything that has urgency will work better. Hey, book your Mother's Day flowers now so mom's not disappointed. Anything with urgency drives somebody to act. Ultra specific. So this is something that sometimes is counterintuitive, because we always want to appeal to everyone, but specificity sells. So even if it's a bouquet for graduations, and maybe you feel like, well, I don't know if I only want to post about graduations. It's okay, because people who care about graduations are going to pay more attention to that. So being specific actually sells better than generalities. Think about the bouquets, and I'll show you some more social media examples, but the stuff that's like really unique and specific does better than the general flowers that are just kind of, you know, ho-hum, run-of-the-mill everywhere. And then something that's useful to people. One of the other options is things like, you know, how to make your flowers last longer, and helping to show you care about people's experiences with your product, not just selling them a bouquet. Entertainment always works. Wow statistics. So I know there's some stat about how having flowers in your home impacts your mood. Stuff like that is always great. If there's a popular topic, you could newsjack that. A lot of restaurants do stuff like this. Like, they might name a hot dog after a celebrity. You could name bouquets after a celebrity. And storytelling can also work, showing the journey of where your flowers come from, how they support local farmers. Those are types of things that can all create more interest. So those are just some sort of positioning ideas. But what's important to keep in mind is the mobile newsfeed moves fast. And I've already said this. So you only have a couple seconds. You need to convey your message as efficiently as possible. So a few ways to do it. One, keep your messages as short as possible. I think this is something in your industry most of you naturally do a good job of. You can just have a small amount of text, keep it short, keep it light, and get your message across. The more text you have, the harder it is for people to read it. Even if you're sending emails, you don't need all this text to sort of frame your email and get your idea across. Get to the point fast because people don't have a lot of time. Think about how you're organizing your text, line breaks, emojis, centering. All of these things will actually make your content stand out more because you can see how intimidating it is to look at a big bulk of text. My favorite copywriting tip is write with an eraser, meaning when you write words, whether it's an email, a social post, or anything else, go back and erase as many words as possible. So I want to talk a little bit about how we optimize our posts. And this talks about Facebook, but it's true for every channel. The first thing people look at is the visual. The second thing is the text above. Then they look at who posted it. And then at the end, they go down and look at below. So this is our order of operations on a Facebook post. I want to start by saying what makes copy bad. So we're starting with optimizing text, then we'll talk about visuals and videos. The first thing that makes copy bad is when you don't really say anything at all. This is kind of like, you know, make mom smile this Mother's Day. Like, okay, what does that mean, right? Try and be specific and clear in what you're trying to say because, again, people only have a few seconds. You don't want to have many messages in every post. We're trying to think about what comes across in a few seconds. Instead of features, focus on the benefits. This is probably a good one for your industry because what we mean by this is think about Crest toothpaste, right? There's sort of features and stuff to the toothpaste, but if you look at the advertising, it's about confidence, it's about the smile, it's about the benefit. One of the things to think about as you look at the way you position your business is to get a little bit away from the features and also think about the emotions and the emotional benefit that people get. And then we've already talked a lot about focus, right? Get that single message across as much as possible. So a couple of tips when it comes to copy. The most simple one is say it out loud. If it's difficult to say, it's difficult to read, especially for email. This is a really simple tip that will make your emails better. Don't use what we call marketing speak. So you don't need to mention yourself. You don't need to say, we're so excited to post this. You're not excited. And people don't care that you're excited. And the you, are, we, us, talking about yourself, that's not how you win friends and influence people on social media. You win friends and influence people by talking about them and their needs and their concerns, right? So instead of we're so proud about this Mother's Day bouquet, it's what a great way to show someone how much you care, right? Now you're talking about your audience instead of yourself. So I just have a few text examples so you can kind of see how this works. But this is like write with an eraser, right? Instead of Trello lets you work more collaboratively and get more done, it's just work collaboratively, get more done. Simple, clear, short sentences that get to the point. Focus on the benefits, not the feature. Instead of the world's first portable digital media player, it's 1,000 songs in your pocket. It's what you get out of it that people care about. Always use an active voice when you're writing. So you don't want to write in the past tense. You always want to write in an active present voice. You can also consider things like subtlety and storytelling. Let people know the story behind stuff, showcase your business and the people, and connect with people in a human way. Specificity sells over generalities. The more specific you are, the more people will respond. Write how you talk. Right? So think about how you would say something naturally. I've done copywriting clinics with like literally the biggest brands in the world, agencies, and small businesses. And oftentimes I read a post and I'm like, what were you trying to say? And the person will say it out loud and I'm like, why didn't you write what you just told me? That was like literally perfect. We almost always, if you were to say something to someone, you would say it like a normal person, but for some reason when we write differently. So write how you would talk and try and make that your default in any channel where you're writing. Focus on clarity and specificity. We already sort of talked about this. Make it scannable, which we've touched on. The first line matters most. So especially on social media, always try and grab attention with that first line. And then if you are trying to drive action, be clear and specific about the action that you want to drive. So in the handouts for this, you have our content strategy cheat sheet and our content optimization quick start guide. Both of those have all of these tips in them, but we've covered most of them already. I'm just going to sort of give you the key tips for text, right? Keep your content consistent with your brand. So if you're light and funny, keep that consistent. If you're a little more serious and somber, always be consistent. One post, one point, especially with flowers, let your visuals do the heavy lifting and try and make your message bite-sized. Just keep it as short as possible. Eliminate any unnecessary text. In copywriting, we actually say that a perfect sentence should be between 5 and 15 words. So 5 to 15 words per sentence. Think about positioning it in an interesting way that draw people's in. You can see this post from Master Florist, right? Like the beauty of what you love be what you do, right? It's showing the passion that this person is bringing to creating the bouquets. So even though you may feel like, oh, like that's just a cute, catchy phrase, it actually serves a purpose. It's like, I pour my passion into every single thing you get. That's actually a really powerful post. And I would prefer to give my money to somebody who's really passionate about what they're doing and I feel like they care about creating a great experience for me. Focus on the first sentence. Hashtags can increase reach. When it comes to hashtags, they mostly matter on Instagram. So if you're posting on Instagram, you want between 5 and 15 hashtags per post. Instagram has tried to convince people to use fewer hashtags. They'll also say that hashtags don't really matter. The data doesn't support this. I think Instagram doesn't want you spamming hashtags, meaning using irrelevant ones, but hashtags are shown to increase your reach. So use relevant hashtags. One of the things to keep in mind is use hashtags that your audience searches for, not what you do. So you don't need to have a hashtag florist. Who's going on Instagram and searching hashtag florist? Maybe other florists looking for ideas. You want hashtag weddings, hashtag graduation gifts, right? The things that your audience is searching for. Tagging other accounts is a great way to drive appeal, especially if you operate in a local community. And then you can also use emojis to drive visual appeal. For your images, single clear focus point. So one of the easiest ways to tell if an image is good is, what is my eye drawn toward? And it's funny, I'm pointing to where this is on my screen, but my eye is drawn right toward the center of that. Where is your eye drawn in a picture? That's the single clear focus point. You want to reduce clutter and make it as simple and clear as possible. Try and be as consistent as possible with your brand. It's not difficult for you to incorporate your product. One of the other points I'll make though is you don't want to over brand. So I wouldn't slap a logo on every post, but I would try to make a point to incorporate your business logo in a relevant way that's contextual. So like for Bootcamp Digital 1, you see, look, I'm wearing a t-shirt and I also have this in the background. My slides are all our orange. I make a point for everything I do to convey our brand colors so that I don't have to put a logo on for it to necessarily look like it came from my brand. Think about how you can incorporate your brand in a natural way. Maybe part of it is, you know, a branded, I don't have one in front of me today, but I have like Bootcamp Digital coffee cups. I might want to throw that into a picture if I can. But you want to try to incorporate your brand if you can. So that way it's not just, oh, those are great flowers. You're also building some brand awareness for yourself. Again, depending on the objective of the post. Less is more, reduce text and visual clutter. Studies show that visual contrast captures more attention. So bright popping colors that are high contrast do better on social media than low contrast. So if you have like white flowers and a white backdrop, that likely won't perform as well. Authentic photos stand out more. And the biggest thing I would say is you've heard that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, not every picture is. Make your picture worth 1,000 words. When it comes to video, vertical videos are like the name of the game these days, guys. Make sure you're posting vertical videos if you're not. You can create these really easily with your phone. If you haven't tapped into Instagram Reels, great opportunity. They're so easy to use. I love doing Instagram Reels workshops because people are always amazed at how easy it is to create them. But basically, like this video is about, a florist taught me this. It's how to preserve the life of flowers with hollow stems. So when it comes to videos, again, you maybe are going to make a 7-second. Most videos you want to be 7 to 60 seconds. That's probably the sweet spot for most videos, 7 to 60 seconds. The key is you need that hook right in the beginning. You need branding and your key message right in the beginning. A florist taught me this. I would add secret, right? That's going to create even more intrigue. Vertical videos, though, are getting a lot more reach than any other content. So definitely think about if and how you can incorporate them into what you're already doing. Studies show that fast cuts work better. So you don't want to dwell on anything for too long. You want fast cuts. If possible, studies show that if your brand or business logo is visible for half of the duration, it actually will increase your brand awareness more. So like you see this one, keep your flowers fresh longer with these tips. Why couldn't she be doing that with a branded backdrop? Or maybe a logoed t-shirt, or maybe a coffee cup with the logo on it. The girl wearing the overalls, I would put a big logo on there. Really make sure you're incorporating your brand naturally when you can so that you do get that brand awareness from it. Obviously, your products are naturally incorporated, so that's not really relevant. But really the key with these videos is keep them catchy and keep them quick. If you think about recipe videos, for example, they're not really trying to show you step-by-step how to make something. They're inspiring you to want to make it, right? That's why they're short, choppy, and catchy. So what you can think about is how do you create these sort of short, choppy, catchy videos in order to stand out as much as possible in the newsfeed. Now, Emily had asked a really good question about content optimization, or a little bit linked, but the question, actually, I see you have two. Are copy overlays a no-no on social images? Great question. I didn't see your question, but I have the perfect screen. So look, here's the deal. You see this, I love you and all your emotions. It's cute, right? And it's the characters from, I can't think of what that movie is called. Inside Out. So there you go, right? So in this case, the idea is integrated into the picture. That's the best way to do it. Here, you can't read it. It says probably Happy Valentine's Day or something. If you can have it naturally included in the picture, that will work better. You can use text overlays, but just use them sparingly. Always make sure they don't detract from the image, right? Like these ones are mostly text, this little like chat one, right? It's cute, got a ton of likes. It's not, so here's what I would say about using text overlays. Don't think of it as yes or no. Ask yourself if it's adding to the appeal of the image or not, and if it's really adding to the storytelling. Like here, this one, you wouldn't need to add text that says like butterflies. Like I know they're butterflies, but maybe if it's National Friendship Day coming up, which people wouldn't know, it's like you might have text over top that says nothing says you're my BFF like flowers on National Friendship Day. You get the point? So I wouldn't think of it as a yes or no. You can add text, but you don't have to. The other question Emily asked is, do you think it's worthwhile to boost a post to get more eyes on it? I could literally spend 30 minutes answering that question because it depends on a lot of factors. But look, here's what I'll tell you. For $5, you can get thousands of people to see your content. You have probably a limited geographic area. If I have a post that has really good branding and really shares my business story, yeah, I would pay some money for people to see that post. If I'm just posting, let's say, this picture of these pink flowers, the question I would have is, if I paid to boost this, Are people going to associate that back with my flower shop? Or are they just like, oh, look at how cute those butterflies are? So I would strategically promote the content that will lead to business growth. Like if Valentine's Day is coming up and I have something great for Valentine's Day, really stunning pictures, and I'm trying to encourage orders, yes, I would consider boosting it. A lot of this content, though, that's harder to trace the business value to, I would probably be a little bit more reluctant to post that kind of stuff. But one of the things you'll notice sort of as we look at some of these accounts that are really posting stunning content is that it does follow a lot of the best practices we've talked about, right? It's not necessarily every bouquet that's being shown. It's the most remarkable content or the content that best achieves the business objectives, right? If I look at this one of these people kissing on a boat with flowers in the background, it's really kind of conveying an emotional message about a way to show your love with flowers. And I think there's a lot of opportunity if you just do some exploring and look at different ways people are sharing content, you'll start to see that there's a lot of different emotional value that you can convey and a lot of value that can help grow your business. If you're a little more strategic about sort of what is that message and what am I trying to say? So with that, we are right at time. So I'm going to pass it over to Janet to wrap us up. We do have another session coming up. So if you do have additional questions, I've answered, I think, most of them as we've gone through. But if you do have additional questions, definitely write them down and come to the next session with them because I'm happy to answer your questions and make sure that you're getting what you need out of our time together. So thank you so much for joining me to learn about content optimization and how you can sort of improve your content to break through the noise on social media and get better results for your business. One last thing I want to show you just really quickly, here we go, is one of the resources you do have as a download gives you all of the sort of little tips and best practices for every channel. So we didn't get too in the weeds about like how many hashtags to use on every channel or how often to post, which, you know, isn't one of my favorite topics. But this is going to give you a great guide and a great resource to implement everything we've discussed and some of the other questions that you may have as well. So make sure you have these downloads in order to really be able to implement everything we've talked about and get a lot of your other questions answered. So I'll pass it over to Janet to wrap us up for today.
Thanks, Krista. Of course, this was another remarkable webinar with tons and tons of really helpful information for everyone. Krista mentioned it. If you are not already registered for part 5, I suggest you go to ftdi.com now and make sure you don't miss our final webinar in this amazing series. Want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. A recording will be available on demand on the FTD Mercury Network Florist YouTube channel. And as a reminder, today's webinar is part 4 of the incredible 5-part e-commerce webinar series. So Krista will be back in 3 weeks on Tuesday, October 1st for part 5, how to turn data into more online sales. Thanks, everyone.